The year is 1856. China is exhausted, wounded, and under pressure from every direction. The Qing dynasty, once confident and commanding, is now struggling to hold together a vast empire shaken by rebellion, corruption, and foreign intrusion. The First Opium War had ended only 14 years earlier, and its consequences still poisoned Chinese society. British merchants operated freely in treaty ports, opium flooded the population, and foreign diplomats demanded more access, more privileges, more control. Yet Britain and its allies were not satisfied. What followed was not a sudden conflict, but a carefully escalated chain of events that history would remember as the Second Opium War, or the Arrow War, a conflict fought not only with cannons and rifles, but with legal manipulation, diplomatic pressure, and calculated humiliation. In October 1856, a seemingly small incident took place in the southern port city of Canton. A Chinese-owned ship called the Arrow was boarded by Qing officials on suspicion of piracy and smuggling. 12 Chinese crew members were arrested. The ship had previously been registered under the British flag, but its registration had expired. To Chinese authorities, this was a domestic law enforcement action. 2 British officials. It was an opportunity. The British consul in Canton, Harry Parkes, immediately protested, claiming that the boarding violated British sovereignty and insulted the British flag. He demanded the release of the prisoners and a formal apology. The Qing governor, the Minkin, released some of the crew but refused to apologize, insisting the ship was Chinese and the arrest lawful. That refusal became the spark. Britain did not want an apology. It wanted leverage. By late 1856, British naval forces began shelling Canton. What was presented to the public as retaliation for an insult was, in reality, the opening move in a broader campaign to force China into rewriting existing treaties. British leaders wanted legalized opium trade, expanded diplomatic presence in Beijing, unrestricted access to Chinese rivers, and further weakening of Chinese sovereignty. France soon joined the conflict, using the execution of a French missionary in Guangzhou as justification. The United States and Russia would later maneuver diplomatically, benefiting from the pressure without committing fully to combat. China now faced a coalition of industrial powers armed with modern weapons, unified by shared interests. Throughout 1857, the conflict escalated. British and French forces launched coordinated attacks along the Pearl River Delta. Canton was bombarded repeatedly. Governor the Minkin refused to negotiate and instead attempted to rally resistance. But Qing forces were hopelessly outmatched. Western steam-powered gunboats shattered Chinese defenses with ease. By December 1857, Canton fell. The Minkin was captured and exiled to India, where he would die in captivity. With Canton occupied, British and French commanders turned their attention northward. Their goal was no longer regional dominance. They wanted direct access to the Qing court itself. In early 1858, the Allied fleet sailed toward the mouth of the Hai River, the gateway to northern China and the road to Beijing. Guarding this route were the Taku forts, heavily fortified coastal defenses meant to protect the capital. In May 1858, British and French forces attacked the forts. Despite fierce resistance, Chinese defenses were overwhelmed by superior firepower. The fall of the Taku forts sent shockwaves through the Qing court. With foreign troops now threatening Beijing, the Xianfeng emperor faced a decision he could no longer delay. Negotiation became unavoidable. That summer, China was forced to sign the Treaties of Tian. These treaties marked one of the most humiliating moments in Qing history. They legalized the opium trade, allowed foreign diplomats to reside permanently in Beijing, opened more ports to foreign trade, granted missionaries the right to travel freely across China, and imposed further in Britain, France, the United States, and Russia all gained significant concessions. On paper, the war appeared to be over. In reality, it had only paused. The Qing court delayed ratification, hoping to regain leverage or avoid full compliance. When British and French diplomats attempted to enter Beijing in 1859 to formalize the treaties, they were blocked at the Taku forts, which had been rebuilt and reinforced. This time, Chinese forces successfully repelled the foreign fleet, inflicting unexpected casualties. For a brief moment, it appeared that China had regained some dignity, but that victory would prove disastrous. It enraged Britain and France and justified an even larger military response. In 1860, the Allied powers returned with overwhelming force. A massive expeditionary army landed in northern China, capturing the Taku forts once again with brutal efficiency. They advanced inland, defeating Qing forces at every encounter. The road to Beijing lay open. Panic spread through the imperial court. The Xianfeng emperor fled the capital, abandoning the city to its fate. This act alone symbolized the collapse of imperial authority. As British and French troops marched toward Beijing, they encountered resistance at Zhangjiawan and Palikao, but Qing forces were decisively crushed. By October 1860, foreign armies stood at the gates of the imperial capital. What followed would become one of the darkest episodes in China's modern history. During negotiations, a group of British and French envoys were captured, tortured, and killed by Qing officials. In response, British High Commissioner Lord Elgin ordered a punishment designed not merely to retaliate, but to humiliate. The Old Summer Palace, the Yuan, a masterpiece of Chinese art, culture, and architecture, was looted and burned. Priceless artworks, manuscripts, and treasures were destroyed or stolen. The act was not a battlefield necessity. It was psychological warfare. It was meant to send a message that Chinese civilization itself could be violated without consequence. The flames that consumed the palace marked more than physical destruction. They marked the symbolic end of imperial invulnerability. With Beijing occupied and the emperor in exile, the Qing government had no choice. In October 1860, the Convention of Beijing was signed. It reaffirmed the Treaties of Tianjin, legalized opium fully, ceded more territory including parts of Kowloon to Britain, increased indemnities, and expanded foreign privileges even further. Russia, without firing a single shot, gained vast territories through separate agreements. China had lost land, authority, dignity, and control over its own future. The Second Opium War officially ended, but its consequences echoed for generations. It accelerated the decline of the Qing dynasty, intensified internal rebellions, deepened economic dependency, and shattered traditional worldviews. Foreign powers now dictated terms within China's borders. Missionaries, merchants, and diplomats moved freely, while Chinese sovereignty eroded year by year. The war also reshaped global history, embedding China into an unequal international system that would define East Asia well into the 20th century. The Arrow War was not fought for justice, law, or civilization. It was fought for profit, access, and dominance. It demonstrated how industrialized empires used military superiority and legal pretexts to dismantle older civilizations. The timeline of this war is not just a sequence of battles and treaties. It is a lesson in how power operates when morality is abandoned and how nations are broken not in a single moment, but through calculated pressure over time. If you want more deep, powerful, and historically accurate stories like this, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the Royal Era, and turn on notifications so you never miss the true stories behind the rise and fall.